You may know Pharrell Williams as, what, the guy who does the Despicable Me songs? Or maybe as the men's creative director of Louis Vuitton. Two very opposite things, I know, but hopefully you know him for his other music as well, because his credits are massive. He's worked on an insane number of songs, and his impact and influence are difficult to overstate. So today I'm breaking down 4 things that are key to his music success. We'll see how he managed to become Pharrell, the guy with his own Lego movie. Now, before we dive into these production secrets, let's listen to a couple songs so we know how many we're talking about.
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like,
I'm a hustler, baby.
Hustler.
I just want you to know. Beautiful. I just want you to know. Senorita, I feel for situation. Yo, I go by the name.
There are so many songs and so many hits, it's impossible for me to cover them in one video. I'm gonna cover more, don't worry, but I can't cover all of them, otherwise this would just be like a Wikipedia page. So how is this possible? How could one person have their hands in all of this music, these huge hits from the late 90s and early 2000s? Well, let's talk about the first element here, and that is collaboration. There are songs that are just Pharrell productions, but we cannot go any further without acknowledging the other person who is responsible for all of this music. That, of course, is Chad Hugo. Pharrell and Chad met in 7th grade band, with Chad playing saxophone and Pharrell on drums. They later performed in a high school talent show as a group called the Neptunes. They were discovered and then signed by Teddy Riley, and they would go on to produce for so many artists. Every one of those musical examples we just looked at were produced by the Neptunes, so Pharrell and Chad together. Pharrell is incredible by himself, but the Neptunes, that's another level. Chad Hugo is more private and quiet. He doesn't really do a lot of interviews, and he doesn't get enough credit. Pharrell has collaborated with many other people, but this is the main one. Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo, the Neptunes, dominating the sound of the late 90s and especially early 2000s. Pharrell's ability to collab with different people from different genres all over, that's one of his keys to success. And that starts right here with Chad Hugo and the Neptunes. We're gonna look at a few other songs throughout this video, and you'll notice some of this Neptune sound carrying over with Pharrell, even if Chad isn't with him. And I think that's some of the magic. Pharrell taking what he knows with someone else, making something new out of it. And yes, Pharrell and Chad are currently in a lawsuit over the name, and they're reportedly not on speaking terms. But the impact of the Neptunes is massive. So now let's talk about the second element here in Pharrell's success. We have not only collaboration, but now we have a very specific tool. Most Neptunes productions don't have samples in them. There is the occasional interpolation, like the song Bustin' Loose by Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers, which I think you'll recognize.
I feel like busting loose now. 'Cause I feel like busting loose, and I feel like touching you.
Yes, that's a Neptunes production as well. This era, we're coming out of the 90s, out of the golden age of hip-hop sampling. All right. A golden age, and golden age. I don't know. The point is, sampling became less common and less possible. This is due to things like high-profile lawsuits, and then also the fact that there's not really a licensing system in place. So it's all case by case. If you're going to clear a sample, it is not only an incredibly long process, but it's incredibly expensive. So this second thing that is a key to Pharrell's success within music, it's a specific production tool, and it has nothing to do with sampling. Let's put it this way. The planet Neptune, its largest moon, the thing that affects its gravity and orbits around it, it's called Triton. In Roman mythology, Neptune has a trident, which he uses equally as a tool and a weapon. And when it comes to the Neptunes, they have the Triton, specifically the Korg Triton. Alright, that's kind of corny. Should I cut that out? I feel like I should cut that out. The point is, the Korg Triton is a synthesizer and workstation. It not only has sounds, but you can sample and sequence on it, and it was released in 1999 and proved to be the perfect tool for Pharrell and the Neptunes. Here, let me show you. You remember the song that we just looked at, Grindin' by Clips? Reverb has a great breakdown of the Korg Triton, and just check this out. It's not just percussion either. There's this sort of synthesized guitar sound. It's not in every Neptunes production, but as soon as you hear it, you know it's the Neptunes.
Here we go. I'm a hustler, baby. I just want you to know. It ain't where I've been. I just...
Alright, just one more from the same video.
Straddle chime time.
The point is, they're not sampling, and they're also not using a bunch of really expensive equipment to manufacture like brand new sounds that have never been heard before. They're just using what's around them in a creative way. Of course, it's not just the Triton. There's a ton of other equipment that the Neptunes and then Pharrell by himself have used over the years. And this would all be for nothing if they didn't first have good musical ability and taste. I mean, you gotta be able to play the instrument, right? Those chords are not going to play themselves. But for me, the big takeaway here is Pharrell and Chad using what is in front of them and just applying their own musical ability to it. It doesn't have to be a fancy piece of gear, doesn't have to be sampling, which is the era that they're coming out of. As long as they're musical and they're getting their ideas out, it doesn't matter what the tool in front of them is. I mean, who else could take a spray can and turn it into a #1 song?
When the pimp's in the crib, ma.
Yes, that's also the Neptunes, Pharrell and Chad, and a beat made with a spray can that became a #1 song. The third element at play here, after collaboration and using what's in front of you creatively, is influence. Pharrell has been very open in interviews about his own influences. For instance, he's a huge Native Tongues fan, and he's also said that when making a hip-hop production, he's trying to channel DJ Premier. There are, of course, a million other influences like Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder, but here's what I think is most interesting. He has a love and respect for these 90s hip-hop producers. And of course, his first credits go back to 1992, build up throughout the 90s, and then by the 2000s, they're all over. But while he's learned a lot from people like Primo and Q-Tip, he's now applying that in a new setting because he's not sampling. We're in a different era now. Also, by channeling specific artists as influences, Pharrell and Chad were able to make some new music that felt new, but also paid tribute to some of their influences in the process. For instance, there are several songs that Pharrell wrote for Michael Jackson or Prince, but after they passed on them, they were passed on to artists like Usher or Justin Timberlake. So you have someone like Pharrell who's trying to channel someone like Primo or Q-Tip or Michael Jackson or whatever, and then they do their sort of imperfect copy of it on new tools that are different. The expectation is slightly different. The original artist says, no, that's not quite my thing. That's not exactly what I want. But then they take that, which is so heavily influenced by this first thing, and they pass it on to a new artist, which is a new sound, a Neptune sound, but at the same time, it's paying tribute to these artists back here in a really great way. But then, of course, you mix that with the fourth and final element that I want to talk about, thinking outside the box. This is crucial here because it's not just Pharrell or Chad or the Neptunes, doing 90s hip hop or doing Michael Jackson style stuff. It's something new specifically because Pharrell brought in other influences that are outside of what you might expect. For example, take NERD. This is a side project rock hip hop band with Pharrell, Chad, and Shay Haley. It's more rock influenced. Like Pharrell is a skater, one of his nicknames is Skateboard P, and you can tell that this leans a little closer to the rock or punk music you might hear at a skate park. I'm gonna play an example, and what I want you to listen for is some of that Neptune sound in there, but also live drums and heavy distorted guitars.
Ooh, baby, you want me? Ooh, baby, you want me?
You can hear a softer version of this at play with the song Double Life from the Despicable Me 4 soundtrack that was released earlier this year.
Will you be tonight? That's the question.
Look, I got kids too, alright? But then it's not just hip-hop or rock or R&B. It's pop like Britney Spears or Holla Back Girl Gwen Stefani. Or, yes, Robin Thicke with Blurred Lines. Or leaning electronic with Daft Punk.
Like the legend of the Phoenix.
Pharrell's production has continued to evolve out of the 90s, through the 2000s, and up till today, combining influences, collaborations, using the tools that are around him, and then combining in all sorts of other outside-of-the-box ideas. And while not every song that he has touched does this, you can always tell it's a Pharrell production by the signature 4 count at the beginning of the song.
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
I was at a show.
You know I hate
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say.
Normally when I end a video, I segue into another one, I point up here the whole thing. But with Pharrell, it could go so many different directions. I don't know what to set up. Like, do I go with Alright? Do I segue that into To Pimp a Butterfly? He's also got credits on Good Kid. Should I point to that video? What about my breakdown of Random Access Memories by Daft Punk? Should I put that up here? Or do you want to dive into some Native Tongues with DJ Premier? Those are huge influences on him. Maybe I should throw that up, huh? What about Michael Jackson or Prince? There's too many videos with connections to Pharrell. So let me say this. If you're new to the channel, welcome. You're in the right place. If you've been here for a while, you understand my conundrum. So instead of setting up and pointing to a specific video here, I'm gonna let the algorithm do its thing and pick the best one for you. Let me know which one it teed up for you. I'm curious, and then I'll see you in the next one.